Thank you, Speaker. Young people are watching with their jaws on the floor as people in this place and in our federal parliament willfully and recklessly gamble with the future of our species, our planet, all in the name of more profits for the already rich. Make no mistake, if we don't act to avert the climate crisis, we are facing an end to life on Earth as we know it, and it is the young people who will face the burden of these consequences. For decades, successive Liberal and Labor governments has failed to address the challenges facing and the priorities of young people in the electorate of Newtown and beyond, and one of those is the area of the growing housing inaffordability and insecurity crisis. Young people suffer the fact that they have failed to deliver on these problems, and the burden is felt heaviest by queer and gender diverse young people who face further discrimination every step of the way. In February, I met with the Y Foundations in Redfern in the Newtown electorate and heard directly from Simon, a young person who had been kicked out of home and struggled for years with instability and homelessness because of the critical lack of housing and services. Simon's experiences are not the exception for young people, it's the rule. For young lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans and intersex and queer young people in communities around this state, they are struggling. More and more young people are being told that they are not free to be who they are. They are nothing more than being used as a political stunt, and that their identities have been somehow invented in some bizarre and absurd attempt to silence them by older conservatives. Well, we may like to believe that the dark old days of blaming young people and that young people facing violence and discrimination in our community as a result of their expression and who they are over. But there are still people in this place, in this very chamber and in the other place, explaining that young people and saying that young people and their identities and their experiences are a joke. The people elected to the New South Wales Parliament cannot refuse to recognise the need to reform protections to provide young LGBTIQ people from harm, and those who ignore the well-documented crisis for trans and gender-diverse young people in New South Wales need to look again. To all of those young people, I stand here on behalf of the Greens in this place and say to you that we hear you. I say to you that we value your experiences and your opinions, and you are welcome in this place, in the other place and in these halls, because we are elected to represent you like we represent all of the other people in New South Wales. The 48,000, or on Conservative estimates, trans people living in New South Wales are there, and yet we do not see that they are included in health strategies, in services, in programs that are delivered in this state, as we see from recent research from ACON, which is located in the electorate of Newtown. Also in the electorate of Newtown, we have an incredible service in the Gender Centre and in 2010. Both of these organisations on a shoestring do incredible work to support young people and their families through some of the most challenging and difficult, hardest periods of their lives. But right now, they are struggling to meet the costs of basic wages for their committed staffs and to provide the costs for adequate premises to keep delivering these services. Meanwhile, in the context of widespread stigma and discrimination and marginalisation, the research suggests that trans and gender diverse people are 4 times as likely to be diagnosed with depression. 70% of respondents to a recent survey reported that they had been subject to discrimination. 1 in 6 had experienced physical abuse because of their gender identity, and almost half had attempted suicide. That is not okay, and it is important for people who use their platforms in public life to try and advocate and discriminate and spout hatred around young, gender diverse and queer people in our community to realise that this has real-world effects, that it actually takes lives and that it causes genuine harm to these individuals. And that is why I will say in this place that the Greens will continue to work strongly for the properly funded trans and gender diverse community services, for research, for advocacy, for health programs. That's why the Greens will work to remove provisions in the Birth, Deaths and Marriages Act which blatantly ignore trans and gender diverse rights and experiences. And that is why we will work for a whole of government approach to stamp out biphobic, homophobic, transphobic bullying and discrimination in schools, workplaces and service provision in New South Wales. And that is why we are committed to overhauling the Anti-Discrimination Act in this state to properly protect queer communities and to eradicate so-called gay conversion therapy. We need to stop the hatred and discrimination that is inflicted on young, queer, LGBTIQ+ people in our communities and start acting like the responsible adults they need us to be.